Indian women's hockey team have played 2 draws in a row in the 2022 Women's Hockey World Cup. The second match against China also ended in a 1-1 draw. Goals in both the matches have come through penalty corners. Today, they will be taking on New Zealand in the final match of the group stages. Hello and welcome to News 9 Special Show. I am Hardik Agrawal and today I have with me Sundeep Misra and Amit Kamath. Sundeep, India have played New Zealand 13 times, but they haven't won a single match against them. How tough will it be for them to surpass the Pool B toppers tonight?
Not too tough. I mean, provided they play. It's a cliche to say that they need to play to potential, but honestly, they need to play to what they already have in the team, which they are not doing. If you really look at the match with China, that's what was coming across. And I think, if you remember, we discussed Anand versus Shopman, and I think in that particular game, it was Anand who had everything going for her, the way the formations were there, the way everything she was doing. What I feel is that the Indian team from the defense side is pretty good. They are well structured, they fall in line. But when it comes to the midfield, I think that's where we are losing out. So what is happening is that the forward line is getting starved. They have to come back. Space is built up there. So for China, if you really look at the first 2 quarters, there was enough space to rotate the ball and come. Because your forwards are not pushing them. They have to come back to the midfield because the midfield is falling to the defense line. Now, if we can get that corrected, and that correction can only come if a couple of midfielders hold the ball, rotate it, figure out what to do, and then have players falling into line or going into those very spaces from where they can easily connect deflections, take the ball, do the aerial passes, all of that. Against China, that completely was missing, which is extremely surprising. And I think if they can correct that, the India versus New Zealand game will not only be a good watch, but I think India can dominate in this particular match. But it completely depends on what your structures are and how you can eradicate or completely minus what you have done against China.
Against China. Right. Sandeep and also Amit, we have at a show. In the match against China, we witnessed a lot of turnovers. There were hardly any substantial threat creation. Let's discuss all the 4 quarters in depth, starting with the first quarter. We have PCR, please fire the interception map of the first quarter. So here we have the interception map of first quarter. Sandeep, 7 interceptions by China in their own half. This clearly shows what you were mentioning earlier, that India were unable to create that rhythm in the attacking zones. China has made 7 turnovers in their own half. So, Amit, would you like to give some insights on the interception map of the first quarter?
Yeah. Hardik, if you noticed in the first quarter, the Indian team, as soon as they started to make an attack towards the Chinese half, we saw that the Chinese players would, make sure that the ball was not passed out through the midfield, because they would make sure that all their defenders were in line to cut out the passing channels. We also saw that India had just, I think, 2 circle penetrations in the first quarter, showing how clinical the Chinese were. They wouldn't attack a player unless they absolutely had to, and when they did attack an Indian player carrying the ball, they would make sure that that the player was absolutely choked for air. So they had nowhere to go but to give away the ball.
Right. Let's have the interception map of second quarter PCR. Here we can see, Sandeep, a lot of action on the left flank for China and on the right flank for India. So what happened in the second quarter?
I think number one, they are forcing India to play more to the right, which is very, very obvious when you see that. Now, the first thing that comes to your mind is that why is the ball not being switched to the left? You're not switching to the left not because you have to switch to the left. You need to switch to the left because you need to change the game. You need to understand the only reason they're going to the right is because their left part is not that as strong to take on skills, to take on subtle crosses and to go on to the touchline, because I have a belief that when if you look at the Chinese defense, the balls whenever they are going from the left and into the striking circle, they invariably have a defender who's backpedaling. What does that mean? It means that she probably doesn't want the ball on the feet. So she's not very strong in the striking circle. They force India to do that. Now, why are we not using aerial balls there? That was completely missing in the China game. And if you see the counter attack that happened and from where China scored,
Yeah.
it came of an error. It came where they snatched the ball and we could not go back because we were all huddled up together trying to figure out how to take the ball back into the right. Now you're not stretched. Why is your midfield not stretched out? You're not playing the greatest team in the world. You're playing China, which is strong. I'm not saying they are not, but they are also under pressure not to concede. Whenever a team is under pressure not to concede, their defense line will always be standing up. Now that advantage we didn't take. That happened in a counter. They scored, which was a great goal. I mean, you can't take the credit.
That pass by Ziyang was outstanding.
Yeah. I mean, they knew where to put it. And those three players were only waiting for a mistake. They were waiting for an error. Then they wanted that counter. And they had one opportunity. They scored, which says a lot about the training. It says a lot about Anand.
Just prior to that, 2 minutes before that, India was close to scoring.
Yeah.
Vandana took that shot, which hit both the post.
True.
So, what went wrong there?
No, you're hitting a post, which is fine. I mean, even in the first game, you had Gurjeet who hit the cross piece and the ball comes off. But you have to have 3 to 4 defenders. You're not going to play New Zealand. You're not playing England. You're not playing Australia. You're not playing Netherlands. You're not playing Germany. Strong teams who understand counter attacks. What you're trying to do is that you're still not going to play your 4 forwards up front who will put pressure on the defense to splinter them. You have Lalram Siami who has enough speed and pace to go into a corner dragging 2 defenders. You have Navjot who has the subtle skills, who can easily hold the ball, wait for others to come into spaces. You're not doing that. What you're doing is you're being fast, you're being hurried about it, and you are very hasty in giving the ball. So it's to China's advantage. That today cannot happen against New Zealand. You have to be strong, you have to be courageous, and you have to hold the ball. That's what it is.
Right, Sundeep. Going forward to the third quarter, PCR, can we have the interception map for the third quarter, please? India scored in the third quarter, but they were not so threatful throughout the quarter, but they did carry out a well-executed PC. So, your views on the PC, Sundeep?
Penalty corners are going to be something that we have to rely on. Now, it was Gurjeet's flick, if I'm right. Now, the flick wasn't intended for a deflection. But it is great to see Vandana coming and putting in a stick and the deflection hits the right spot and it goes in. But I think these PCs that we are missing, they are also coming because number one, the ball is not coming fast enough for the person to stop, which completely spoils Gurjeet's rhythm. The flicks are always built on rhythm, they are always built on momentum, and that's why you have 300, 400, 500 training shots that usually happen. Once you get the momentum, you will see that what Gurjeet does is send the ball into angles, into corners. It's very difficult to defend from there. And even if you defend, if you remember the first match and the rebound coming off the pads and Vandana flicking it in, it came in because the ball was low, the goalkeeper had to squat. If you squat, you can't get up in time. That's 1.5 seconds to get up. That was good enough time for Vandana to score.
Right.
They are not forcing the defense to do that. But that comes from the rhythm of the penalty corners. I think that needs an overall. Today you can't do an overall. Today you have to score whatever happens.
Yeah, specifically through field play.
You need field play and whatever penalty. Listen, you do 50% of your PCs, you won the game. Okay, you do 30% of the PCs, you're going for a draw. But you still need to score 2 field goals there to have a clearance of 3-1, 3-2, 4-2, 4-3 kind of winning score lines. That's what modern field hockey is all about. It's all about field attempts. It's always about PC conversions.
Amit, your take on India's field play? No goals through field play so far, and only 2 goals via 12 penalty corners taken so far. Your take on that, Amit?
I think what is also happening is that a lot of the times we are seeing that the forwards are running into the circle But when they are conceding the ball, or when they are getting put under pressure, they are not converting a penalty corner, or they're not looking to actively get a penalty corner for the team. Like yesterday, for example, in the first quarter, Sharmila had two blazing runs straight into the Chinese circle, and both the times the Chinese players would just come and like plug the ball out of her pocket. So that cannot happen. Once you are inside the circle, at least look to get a penalty corner if you are not, uh, crossing the ball and making a threat out of it. So that is one thing that definitely needs to be, worked out.
Right, Amit. Can we have the interception map of the fourth quarter, please? A lot of errors in the fourth quarter, Sundeep. High intensity. The players were exhausted. A lot of misplaced passes. They were unable to trap the balls. 19 turnovers in all. What's your say on the fourth quarter of the game?
Well, I don't think that the Indians were really exhausted. I think the fitness levels are pretty high. I mean, that's something that, you have to give it to this team. They were still running hard. They were still running after the ball. But were they running into the right spaces is the question here. When you have high turnovers, it means that you're hasty. Your low turnover sometimes does mean that you're not putting the ball through also. But as we said, I think even later on we can speak about Neha and what she can bring into this game. Somebody out there needs to hold the midfield. A fourth quarter in modern hockey is becoming the quarter. It's becoming the match. It's becoming those 15 minutes in which everybody can come in. You still got 30 seconds, 40 seconds left in the fourth quarter. You can still score 2, leave alone 1.
Right.
People are scoring with 5 seconds left. People are scoring with 3 seconds left. So the one that is overtly defensive in this particular game, China, I fail to understand why we didn't press. You are going for a draw, doesn't work out. You got to go for a win. And a team like China, where they are a little fragile in the defense, they are standing up very straight and they are pretty correct in their technique. You can still beat them. Why? Because you have the skill. So the turnovers were there because you're making errors, you're making mistakes, you're just going in. You don't have a plan of what to do after that. I think that's where, if the plans are corrected, and my favorite, if she can come in and play central midfield, I think we
Neha.
can. Yeah, I think she can really dominate.
Right. And Amit, 16 circle penetrations by India throughout the game, 9 shots on target. Still they lagged, like, to be precise, in the final third, in the final 25. So what needs to change from the attackers' point of view?
I think we need to have more support to the guy to the person carrying the ball. If a Sharmila is running into the corner, if a Vandana is running into the corner, there need to be other players, creating the chances around them. They need to be standing at a place where the person can look up and pass the ball. That we didn't see so much of that in the China game, when the players were inside the circle, but they found themselves crowded out by the Chinese defenders. So if that is one thing we can work on, maybe it will create more chances, it will create more goals also.
Right, Amit. Moving on to the match that New Zealand had with England, Amit. So New Zealand won the match 3-1, but England had 14 PCs to New Zealand's 1, 18 shots on goal to New Zealand's 4, and 35 circle penetrations to New Zealand's 8. What does this say about India's next opponent?
So New Zealand are a team that they don't like too much of the ball. They don't want to attack, get into the circle of the opponents. We saw that not just with with their last game, they also did the same with China. If you look at the China game, they had just 44% of the ball possession. They had 3 penalty corners as opposed to 8 from China. They had, I think, some 14 circle penetrations to 22 from China. So that just shows that they are a team who is very, very secure, staying back in their own circle, in their own half, defending in numbers, and when the chance is right, when the opportunity presents itself, hit them on the counter attack and score. So far, they've scored 5 goals, despite having, I think, just 9 shots on goal in their 2 games, which shows that they are an opportunistic side. They will get into the circle when they have to, and when they do, they very rarely miss. At least in this tournament, we've seen that they have very rarely missed.
Rightly mentioned, Amit. So, Sundeep, New Zealand are quite efficient in the attacking zones. But what about today? A draw or loss today would put India in a very tough situation. Let's have a look at the current standings of Group B and see what could happen if Team India loses or plays a draw tonight. So, New Zealand are at top, China at second, India at third and England at fourth. A win would put India at the top spot with 5 points. A draw would put them in the second spot and a loss could potentially put them on the fourth spot as well. So, how tricky situation is this for Team India?
Well, you can't call it tricky. There's just one point I want to pick up from what Amit was saying, is that the players are not looking up. Now you see that in who are the players who look up? Udita looks up. Okay, Grace looks up. That's why they're so technically perfect. They're so conversant with what's happening in the rest of the field.
Good understanding of the game.
If these players look up, including Neha, including Navjot and everybody else, they start looking up, you'll see the movement is going to get much better. The rhythm is going to get much better. And that will reflect on the points. We got to win today. You got to go to 5.
Right.
There is no other way around. You got to go to 5, you got to go and top the pool, you got to go into the quarterfinals and sit there so that you can watch the rest of them play around and then you wait for your opponent. But if you're going to go for a draw, you're still probably going to go into the crossovers, but then you are in no man's land, you know. You don't know which teams are going to face. Who's going to be the ones in the other pools who are going to drop off and become number 2 and 3. You can't afford to lose this. It's as simple as that, because then you're going to get down to goal differences. Then you hope England will whack China or do something like that, and you hope something or the other is going to happen. Let's not leave it to hope, you know, just go for a win, play what is called secure hockey, take a second more, take 2 seconds more, it's enough, you got 4 quarters. Play the hockey that you've always played, you know, which is confidence, which is positive, which is going up, which is figuring out spaces, and you will get your 3 points. There won't be a problem there at all.
Right, Sundeep. A win tonight would put India in a comfortable situation. Right, Amit?
Absolutely. Also, one more thing I wanted to point out, that if you look at the Tokyo Olympics, where the Indian women's team finished 4th, they didn't have a very good set of results there at the start. They had defeats against the Netherlands, they had defeats against Germany, they had defeat against Great Britain. Their first 3 games were all defeats. And after that, they were still not at their best. They were still winning their next 2 games by just 1-1 goal margins. But when it really mattered, they tend to pick up their game. So if we are extrapolating from that tournament, we can say that, you know, this team is something that is someone that knows when to pick up their game. They might start a little slow, but so we can only hope that in the next few games they really pick up their pace and don't end up going into the crossovers where they have to meet either Korea or Spain, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, Amit. Thank you, Sundeep. Thank you, Amit. You gave us some incredible insights. It was a fun chat. That's it from this episode. We'll be back with more interesting news, insights, facts and figures from the world of sports. Until then, keep watching News 9. This is Hardik Agrawal signing off.